Recipe for Happiness by Seneca. 11 Stoic Tips for 21st Century People. In these challenging times, it is important to maintain emotional balance and make thoughtful decisions. Seneca, an ancient Roman philosopher of the Stoic school, left us with many valuable recommendations on how to achieve peace despite everything. All people want to live happily. My brother Gallio, wrote Lucius Annaeus Seneca, a Roman philosopher and statesman, to his brother around 58 AD, but they vaguely understand what a happy life consists of. Seneca knew what he was talking about. He was a true happiness expert and wrote throughout his life about eudaimonia, or living in harmony with nature, or in modern terms, inner peace. However, Seneca's life could be described as anything but peaceful. Seneca suffered from a long and serious illness and was later exiled from Rome during the reign of Emperor Claudius. He later returned to become a mentor and then advisors to Emperor Nero, who initially admired him but later accused him, apparently falsely, of conspiracy, forcing Seneca to take his own life without a gut. The severity of his fate cannot be compared to the hardships of daily life for the modern city dweller. Do you think you have a bad boss? However, perhaps you can still relate to Seneca. Like any person, you want to be happy and healthy, but chaotic circumstances mercilessly make choices for you, distracting you from your own rhythms and ways of thinking, which could bring you joy and remind you of the meaning of life. Seneca wrote the treatise on the happy life during his most difficult years under Nero. These instructions, addressed to his brother, were undoubtedly also instructions to himself. Seneca wrote about what to do to maintain composure in the face of chaos. Each paragraph on the happy life is a precious gem that is definitely worth your time and attention. Fortunately for us, Seneca also kindly provides 11 of the most important tips, which, in his opinion, should be followed to achieve peace, and they are just as relevant today as they were to millennia ago. Advice 1. I will look at death and comedy with the same expression on my face. Seneca is not suggesting that you should laugh at funerals or cry when you hear a joke. He is not saying that sadness and happiness are bad. He simply advises you to control your emotions in their extreme manifestations so that they don't control you. And this is great advice. In 2020, French researchers studied the link between behavior in a calm state of mind and during intense emotions. Scientists found that composure helps alleviate negative states such as intrusive thoughts, catastrophizing, and neuroticism. Advice 2. I will not abandon my work, no matter how difficult it may be, and will support the strength of my body with the power of my mind. One of the wonderful modern discoveries is that physical and intellectual fitness is critically important for a happy life. Elderly people who are both happy and healthy usually have two habits throughout their lives: continuous learning and physical exercise. Here's a simple rule: read and walk every day to two activities that are as revolutionary today as they were in Seneca's time. If you feel like you can do them simultaneously, take a walk while listening to a book. Advice 3. I will despise the wealth that I have and not desire what I don't have. I won't be upset if it is in another person's house, and I won't be delighted if it surrounds me. I will not worry about the whims of fortune, whether it comes to me or leaves. This advice is much deeper than the trivial "money can't buy happiness." Seneca's statement is that attachment to wealth brings unhappiness, and modern research proves the philosopher right. For example, in an article published in the journal Personality and Individual Differences in 2017, researchers showed that attachment to money can decrease well-being and lead to depression. Advice 4. I will start to see all lands as my own, and my own as belonging to everyone. This advice complements the previous one. It also states that suffering occurs not only when a person thinks too much about money, but also when a person holds on to what they have too tightly. This idea is present in many religious and philosophical traditions. For example, it is similar to what Catholics call solidarity. We are all sisters and brothers, so if I have something, I own it for the common good. Advice 5. I will live as if I know that I was born for others, and I will be thankful to the nature and things for it, because how else could it take better care of my interests? It has given everything to me alone. In other words, charity is a gift to the giver. Serving others is one of the simplest ways to become happier. Numerous studies confirm the fact that charitable donations, volunteering, spending money on others, and more radical actions such as blood and organ donation all increase a person's emotional well-being. Advice 6. I will not guard my possessions with excessive stinginess, nor scatter them recklessly. This advice is another version of the saying everything in moderation, but it goes beyond the statement that moderation is simply good from a moral point of view. According to Seneca, it also leads to inner peace, and research confirms this idea once again. It is easy to see with excessive consumption of alcohol and food, but moderation is also justified in virtues. Workaholism also does not lead to anything good. Advice 7. I will consider myself most fulfilled by what I intelligently give to others. I will not measure my acts of kindness in terms of quantity or weight, judging them only by the level of respect I have for the recipient. I will never think it excessive to assist a worthy person. The idea here is that the true value of what I do lies not in how much it costs me, but in the benefit it brings to you. For example, the true value of your work is not in your salary, but rather in how much it helps others. Altruism won't pay your rent, but if you take this lesson seriously, it can change your priorities and possibly even give you a chance to get a better job. Advice 8. I won't do anything for the sake of other people's opinions, but only for my own conscience. What I know, I will do as if a crowd of people is watching me. This advice is twofold. First, you need to free yourself from the desire to compare yourself to others and seek social approval. Second, you need to behave in solitude as you would in public. The first lesson is fundamental to psychology and largely explains why social media, where we constantly compare ourselves to strangers and friends, hinder the well-being of so many people. The second lesson is that honesty and consistency lead to happiness, while hypocrisy leads to unhappiness. Researchers have shown that perceived insincerity damages our human need to see ourselves authentic and consistent in our actions. Advice 9. Kind to friends, gentle and respectful to enemies. I will always approach people without making myself beg, and will always fulfill an honest request. This biblical imperative of your enemies is the foundation of many philosophies that urge us to stop harboring animosity towards our opponents. Love has redemptive power, Martin Luther King Jr. said in a sermon in 1957, and it is this power that ultimately transforms people. In my own research, I have shown that love, despite differences, is not only practical, it can also be a source of immense joy. Advice 10. I will know that my homeland is the world. My patrons are gods watching over and around me, evaluating my actions and words. This advice takes the second part of advice 8 a step further. I must act not just as if others are watching me, but as if God is watching me. In one experiment, participants were asked to voluntarily give money to a stranger or keep it themselves. Those participants, believers and non-believers who thought about God or related concepts before the experiment, were twice as generous as those who didn't. When researchers asked new participants to think about secular moral institutions, civil society and jury trial, the effect was almost the same. And remember what we learned from Advice 5, such generosity will benefit not only the people you give to, but also yourself. Advice 11, at any moment when nature demands to take back my breath, or when my own mind releases it to her, I will depart, affirming under oath that I have lived a clean conscience and worthy pursuits throughout my life. I have never hindered anyone's freedom, least of all my own. This lesson calls upon us to consider the well-being of others as a means to peacefully accept our own death. Indeed, research on terminally ill individuals has shown that patients who approached their death calmly were focused on other people. They saw their illness as an opportunity to help others. They praised their friends, nurtured their grandchildren, or participated in clinical trials. It is known that Seneca himself died with composure. He took his own life, but did so calmly and spoke of the courage needed both in life and in death. In Peter Paul Rubens' famous painting, The Death of Seneca, the philosopher is depicted as dying while standing up, symbolizing the Roman ideal of virtue, courage, valor, and character.